Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I have got an absolute belter for you today. So, it's related to harmony, and we call them spread triads. You might hear them referred to as tenths as well. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to do them, how to use them for development, and then what they sound like at the end if you've built up your arrangement correctly. So, here's what they are. And those attractive young gentlemen over there are a band called Biffy Clyro, and that's where I first came across this technique quite a while ago now with a song called Many of Horror, and ever since it's been used in pop and commercial music over and over and over again. You hear it used in dance music on synthesizers, the Ginger Winger uses it all the time. It's a really effective technique and it's very straightforward on how to do it. So I'm going to keep leaving these little cue cards up on the screen for you so that you can freeze the screen if you need to, if you were trying to do like a follow along. Alright, so that's been on there plenty of time, and we'll come back to this in a minute with some development ideas. Right, so I need to get to Logic, and we've got a chord change in here. It sounds like this. Okay, really simple chord change, and what you'll find that is we're working in the key of G minor, and here is the progression. We're doing one bar of chord 1, it's a minor chord, so we're doing a lowercase I, one bar of chord 3, a B flat chord in this case, that's a major chord in a minor key, chord 3, so it's large letters, and then a bar of E flat, which is chord 6, again major key, and then we're going on to chord 7, and then chord 5. I'm using the natural minor, so if we look along the scale here, I am not raising the 7th, which might upset the classicists, but we are using the natural minor, so that will be a minor 7th above the root, so an F natural in this instance. Okay, don't worry if you don't follow that. So here are the 3 notes we're using each of those triads. Okay, and that's what they sounded like earlier on. Now, if you are going to turn these into tenths, okay, this is what you need to do. Alright, we have a look at what the chord looks like at the moment. Now, with this technique, you are going to be going quite high, so we need to get this out of the way. And that was not what I intended. Let's take all of those. So the first thing you need to do is drop them an octave, so I can take the whole thing 8 notes down. Whoops. Okay, that's better. Okay, so that is 1 octave down, and that's going to create some space for the melody in this register here. And what I'm going to do is take that middle note, the 3rd, and I'm going to put it up an octave. Come on, Logic. There we go. So that's all there is to it. Let me do that again for you, and I'll do that in the piano roll so you can see the difference, hopefully without so many mistakes. Okay, so go to piano roll. If you're doing it in the piano roll, you select your triad, you drop it a whole octave, there we go, and you take the middle note of that triad and you stick it back up 1 octave. Okay, and it sounds like this, which is much more open, less dense, far more attractive to listen to, and sounds much more advanced. And I've done that for all of the chords in our sequence, made it ready earlier on for you. So you can see that the 3rd every time is being lifted an octave. Now the reason why we call it a tenth is because that is, if you think of the octave as note 8, then the 2nd degree of the scale would become the 9th, and the 3rd degree of the scale would become the 10th. So this is what this sounds like. I think you'll agree, especially in a minor key, that's starting to sound pretty good straight away. So what we need to think about is how can we push this further and show that we got some composing chops. So I've got this for you ready to go, and I will leave this on the screen a couple of seconds so that if you want to pause you can, if you want to do a follow along. Okay, and then I'll show you how this works in Logic. So I've got the original chord change here. I'll go through the whole process again. I select everything, I drop it an octave. Okay, now this development phase is where we are trying, instead of just using root positions all the time, we use inversions. And I like playing games like trying to make the top note of the chord go up by a degree in the scale or as few degrees in the scale. And in this instance we are going to make the bottom note. We're going to use inversions, shuffle the chords around so that the bottom note goes down by as little as possible. So this note here is going to come down an octave. Logic's telling me it's an F, so I drop it an octave. Now you see here I don't need to do an inversion, because if we're coming down G minor scale, G, F, E flat, that is fine. We could probably do one here though. Okay, so that would be phase one. Get it into the right register and then do your inversions. Sounds like this. Okay, pretty good. Now, the development phase, the tenths. We take the middle note and we stick it up an octave. And do that every time. Okay, now this is going to sound a lot more grown up. So that's one way of developing your phrase, okay? Use the inversion trick and stick the middle note up an octave. That will automatically give you a tenth. G to B flat is a tenth. F, well, it's not really a tenth, it's a spread triad, but the spread triad business really works. Ignore the tenths business there. Right, anyway, moving swiftly on, nothing to see here. Let's try one of these tricks over here, okay? Let's have a look at that. I'll leave it on the screen for you so you can do a follow along if you want. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do the top bullet point, and this is where we start getting some passing notes in. It works really nicely. So I'm going to do it on the first chord here. Now everybody at the moment is moving on chord 4. They're doing a chord change on chord 4. It's very hip. So I want to move this melody note up to the next note in the scale. So I am going to go to my pencil tool and I'm going to put a C in. Missed. And then I'm going to check what chords I need that have got a C in. Okay. So I could use chord 2, but I'm working in a minor key, so it's a good idea to avoid chord 2 if you can help, because it's sort of a half diminished chord. No C's in that chord. I could use chord 4, but I'm going to use chord 7. Alright, so I need to do a spread triad of that chord there. Come back, piano roll. Okay, so I need, it's chord 4, it's an F major chord, I need F, A and C. So I could put the A there, and I put F there, but we can see that that's got a nasty jump all over the place. So it would make much more sense if I use an A there, because it's right next door to the G, and I put the C there. So I've got every note in the triad, I think. Let's have a listen. I think I might have got it wrong. That'll do nicely. So I've got my A, I've got my F, and I've got my C. That's fine. Let's have a listen to that again. So we could do with another one there. And I like the sound of that chord so much, I'm going to copy it and use it again. So let's have a listen to that now. Come on. Now I think it might be a bit heavy going if we do another lift there, but I'm just going to keep that sound going by copying those chords again across again. I'll just make them the right length, and now we've got this. I really like that. That's working very well indeed. Okay, now I know that in minor keys, when you go to chord 6, here's a great little aside for you. Wrong one. In chord 6 in minor keys, in our case an E flat chord, using the 7th note of the triad works really, really well. So I'm going to chuck that in because we can. And I'm also going to do it on the chord 5 over here. It's too long, so just reduce it. Okay, so 7th chords, don't use them too much because it gets very complicated very quickly. That's great. Alright, and that just adds a little bit of shine, a little bit of dissonance in there, which works really, really well. Let's have a look at some of the other techniques you can try. So we've tried the little passing note trick, works really well. Let's have a look at this one here. This is a great way of making your music sound very complicated, and it is very, very simple. So you know your key, so we're only going to be using notes in G minor in this instance, and then we choose a target note to kind of decorate, and then we go to the note next door to it. Let me demonstrate for you. I'm going to put one here, so I'm going to shorten that B flat there. Now the note next to it in G minor is A beneath it. So I'm just going to put a little note in there, so we're going to get some tension and then resolve. Now that sounds really plain now, so we need to do the same thing, and I'm going to demonstrate you can do it the same way, but you can do it from above. So our target note there is a G, the note above it in G minor is an A, so that's going to fall from that A note and it's going to resolve to that G there. And we're just playing with the noises, they sound great. Okay, so those are some of the things that you can do to use spread triads to make your piece interesting. But my top tip is that you don't use them just in one way. They are absolutely amazing to create development and keep your piece moving. So what I've got here is I've got a piano part, and in each one of these times I've changed it. Okay, so here are the spread triads, the first 4 bars in their root position. In the second time around, I've done that little trick with the adjacent note in the melody note, the note that's ended up on the top, but these are the inversions, and I've doubled the bottom note of each chord down an octave. This time round, I added that extra lift, the chord which is like the stepping stone between the triads, and we just added a little F triad and made sure it was spread out. And then here, to sort of build it even more, instead of just being one fat long note, I just turned them into quavers, and I made sure that I altered the velocity, because if you keep the same velocity each time it sounds really mechanical, and that goes round and round and round. So have a listen to it as it steps through. So this is the same chord change every time, but they're just tweaked each time with one of those tricks or two of those tricks, and it grows and grows and grows. So inversions and doubled bass note. Okay, same thing with the lift, little lift, the passing triad. And a bit of rhythm. Etc, etc. Okay, now to prove to you how we can make the same chord change over and over and over again interesting, I've put a melody on top, and here I've followed my own rules. I've tried to do an A, B, A, C type melody, and as each time it gets a little bit more complicated in the accompaniment, I've tried to go up so it gets more and more exciting. It's very high because I'm using a piano. If you were a singer, this melody could be down an octave and it wouldn't get in the way. Okay, so have a listen. This is using all notes in the G minor scale and a bit of basic structure. If you don't know about melodies, see my other videos. Same melody but decorated. Right, this is the next melody along. Now my chorus melody. Okay, so that's all the same chord change, going over and over and over and over, round and round and round, but we are just applying two tricks. We are developing the spread triads each time with a few simple ideas, and we are using some melodic tricks which are covered in other videos to keep it developed and growing and growing and growing. Now, I've also done videos on how you can do that for other instruments. In this part here I've added a bass line, and most of the time it is copying the bottom note of what our main piano is doing, and sometimes it adds some rhythm. And on this channel here I've done some guitars, and the guitars are copying the same kind of 10th tricks. Now I've got a real guitar, so I've played it on a real guitar, but you could program it in. So this started like this. Using some 10th tricks and some melody writing tricks and some real instruments, we ended up with this. do some slightly scruffy guitar playing at the end there. I'm not used to the cheese grater. Okay, so just applying simple tricks starts with that. Okay, practice your craft and the art will come. I'll see you next time. Like and subscribe and all that YouTubery stuff, and see you again soon. I'm looking forward to hearing your ideas.